What up, watch peeps? So this video is a follow-up to my previous video on modding, and we're going to look at the first of two mods whose parts we looked at last week, the Gilt dialed SKX. Basically, I had the guts of a Seiko turtle, an SRP 775, in an SKX case with a matching bezel insert and such. And we're going to move those guts wholesale into a Namoki 4 o'clock no crown guards case. Just give the watch a little fresher of a look. Won't look like any other SKX basically. And shooting this video was a little bit of a learning experience for me. I'm not used to modding on camera, and that took some getting used to, but I think I got it done. For some reason, the temperature outside has dropped to a stupid level, and our furnace kicked on, and there was this awful humming throughout the background of the entire video. So I ended up having to mute the audio off of the video. But as it turns out, that might be the better way to do this kind of video. It would have resulted in a video that was way too long. I originally had running commentary throughout all of it, but this process takes more than 15-20 minutes, and that just would have been too much. So the better way to do it is probably to shoot the video and edit it down to a reasonable size, do a voiceover after, which is what we've got here. So anyway, let's flip the camera around and let's build a watch. I'm Pete, and we are chilling with watches. So the first step will be to insert the crystal gasket. Interesting side note, the first step is actually to insert your chapter ring, which I completely forgot to do here, and that is your fault, making me do this on camera. Anyway, the crystal gasket, the top has a slight bevel to it, you'll notice. You want to make sure that's on top. The bottom side is flatter. You want to make sure that is all the way down, sitting on the shelf. The bevel on the top will help the crystal to go in a little smoother, keep the gasket from getting pinched. Blow dust off the crystal, off the case. Now you want to make sure your crystal is sitting nice and flat. Same amount of the side of the crystal showing all the way around. You also want to make sure that the crystal gasket, that you can see it around the outside of the crystal. And that's where that bevel will come into play. The crystal will actually sit inside the bevel. Now this first press is just going to be the lightest amount of pressure. I'm just going to go until I feel resistance, and then give it just another maybe quarter turn or so, just to partially seat it so that I can take it back out, examine it, make sure it's going in flush. You want to look, make sure, recheck around the side of the crystal, make sure it's going in evenly. You also want to peek underneath and check that the gasket has not got under the crystal and is getting pinched. Then I'm going to put it back in for another press. The second press, probably 50% of the way in. Just go until you feel resistance, and then depends how much, another quarter turn or so more, you'll actually see the crystal sliding into the case, but I'm not looking to fully seat it yet. And we'll take it out, check again. Make sure it's still going in flat and flush. If at any point it's going in crooked, I'll take it out and start over. So everything was going well here, so I'm going to put it back in for the final press. This time I will just go down until it looks like the crystal it's not moving any further into the case, or I feel like I can no longer, can't twist the press any further, and then I'll stop. Take it out, give it a final examination, make sure it's went in straight. I always then throw it in my old lever press here, just because you can really press down on it basically as hard as you can, make sure it's fully seated here. So I'll put it in here, press, quarter turn, press, quarter turn, press. Do that through 4 times so you get it all the way spun around. That just makes me feel better about knowing that it's fully seated. So I go back and I put the chapter ring in at some point here. I do not have that on cam though, so apologies for that. So I'm just going to dust off the crystal from both sides. If you're very careful with these crystals as you get them unwrapped from whatever supplier you buy them from, they'll come very clean, usually dust free, smudge free, and if you don't touch them, you won't need to clean them very much. Here's the rubber ball. This is a case back remover tool. Works purely on friction. You just press down as hard as you can and twist. This one came off kind of easy because I think I already had it off. But if you can't get it with the ball, you can use the wrench. But I always try the ball first because you're not guaranteed not to scratch anything with that. So I'm taking the movement dial and hands wholesale from this previous SKX mod and transplanting them into this new 4 o'clock no crown guard case from Namoki. So I don't have to set hands or anything here. This is a rather simple build. Removing the crown. Just a little press on the lever to free the crown. Flip the case over. And voila, we got the movement that we need. I'm gonna check it for dust. But seeing as I just took it out of a watch, it's probably clean. If you guys haven't seen these Murphy Manufacturing movement holders, they're fantastic. Indispensable tool. They hold the movement very nicely, great for setting hands and all that. But more importantly, it's a 2-piece movement holder. And the outside is like a sleeve that goes around the inner part. And the movement sits on the inner part, but that sleeve holds it in there. And you can actually press the case down over top of this, and that outer sleeve moves out of the way, pressing the movement right up into the new case. So they're really nice for that. Using a Rodico putty, check for any dust. But like I said, just took it out of the wash, so it's clean. All right. So you're just going to place the new case directly over top of the movement. And here's a good place to check for dust, because you can see whether it's on the crystal or the dial. A good trick to do before placing the crystal is to insert the dial first, then drop the chapter ring in and align the chapter ring to the dial. You can just use a small drop of hypo cement on the shelf that the chapter ring sits on. Then you take the movement back out, press the crystal down on top of the already aligned chapter ring. So here I'm just removing spots of dust that are apparently on the outside of the crystal, making sure there's nothing inside, and it looks good. So that is pressed down, the movement's in there, flip it over, and you just take the holder off and it's cased. So I'm reusing the crown that I took from the old SKX because it was a Crystal Times triple gasket signed crown. Very nice. Don't blow any dust out of the movement. And anytime I remove a crown, here I'm just going to make sure that the movement is aligned with the crown tube, so that before inserting the crown, so it goes in straight. See, anytime I take a crown out, I like to relubricate the gaskets on it before reinserting it. You can see the 2 gaskets there. The third one is inside the crown itself that seats against the tube. But I'm just using a small pot of gasket silicone grease and a fine brush. So when you're inserting the crown, you always want to just give it a slight twist as you're inserting it. Never press too hard. But the twist will ensure that it goes in cleanly and smoothly into the movement. One thing I really like about these aftermarket crowns and cases is how many threads you get. I mean, you get a solid 5 or 6 turns to lock down these crowns. And I'm going to clean around the outside of the case, around the channel or the groove where the case back gasket goes. Just to make sure it's clean, make sure there's no dust in there. Anything that could impact the water resistance. So before installing a case back gasket, you also want to re-lubricate that with gasket silicone. This is basically just a plastic container with 2 sponges coated in silicone grease, and give it a squeeze, give it a twist, give it a squeeze, give it a twist. That's what she said. And we're going to open it up, make sure it's fully coated. I usually just grab tweezers and drop this right into the little channel or groove. The silicone grease that's on it will help it. Gives it a little bit of surface tension that'll help it really stay in place as I'm just tapping it down into the groove here. Next, we'll close it up with the case back gasket, or case back. This is also from the Mokies. Since I'm using a black movement holder, this is a black movement holder styled case back. It's sandblasted finish. I like to use those. They're very smooth, very comfortable. My secret trick, a wad of masking tape. Just forms a kind of handle on the case back. Makes it easier to put it on. I usually drop it on and back turn it just a little bit till you feel it drop into the threads. And then you can just hold it by the wad of masking tape and spin it on. Tighten it up a little more with the friction ball. Now I usually will grab the case back wrench after this just to make sure it's on as tight as possible, but you'd be amazed how close to fully tightened it can get with this with the friction ball. I can usually only get it to budge the tiniest bit, if at all. And I'm just checking, final check. This is how you twist your Rodico into a little fine point there. That's how you remove dust. And then tap, tap, tap. I'm just checking to make sure there's nothing under there. Grabbing some bits off the outside of the crystal. So this is the click spring. It has 2 little feet on it. And there are 2 matching holes on the case. You want to drop those feet into the holes. Make sure they're all the way in and that click spring is sitting flat all the way around. Interesting thing with this click spring, it ended up giving me a 60 click bezel on the finished product. I don't think that was by design. I don't know if the 2 parts of the click spring that stick up that give it the actual clicks are not offset by a half a minute, and instead they just give one, they both click at the same time. Either way, I love a 60 click bezel, so it ended up really cool. No alignment problems, no backplay issues. This is the Mokies Marine Master style bezel. It came with the gasket already installed, so I was just applying a bit of gasket lubricant to that as well. It gives it a nice smooth action. So I'm trying to find a die for the press that fits inside the bezel where the insert will go, but clears the crystal. Easier to do with a flat crystal than some of the really high domed ones. So just set it in your press, and you should see it pop down onto the case from there. It is. Alright, the bezel's on now. Let's check the movement, the action. And this one, like I said, has great action. The littlest bit of backplay like you get with Seiko sometimes, but it's consistent the whole way around, and it's really not much at all. Once it's clicked in, it feels very solid. You can actually get you can get different size bezel gaskets, thicker or thinner ones to give you tighter or looser action. So this insert did not have a double-sided adhesive one, so I have to apply one. Now here's how you do this. You fold it in half like this, so you're just half exposed piece of the insert. You want to line it up onto your insert. You don't want to go all the way to the edge, because then on the other side of the insert, the adhesive will be too far to the inside. So you want to be able to see a small ring of the insert around the outside of the adhesive sticker. Peel that off and place it on. Make sure it's firmly in place. Now these things are perforated, they're pre-cut, but I always take an X-Acto knife and drag it around that pre-cut just to make sure it separates easily and you don't pull any of that double-sided adhesive out when removing the inside of the sticker. And I'm just gonna pop the middle part out, which with the, this is where the X-Acto pays off. It comes out very easily here. There you go, nice and clean. So now the real moment of truth, getting the bezel insert lined up with the rest. So like I said, at this point you should already have your chapter ring and dial aligned. So now you're going to want to align the insert with your chapter ring. First, I'm going to take off the other side of the double-sided adhesive here before dropping it into the bezel. And you're going to put it in trying to line up that pip triangle on the insert to the 12 o'clock dash on the chapter ring. But one thing I like to do is also try to line up the 11 and the 1 o'clock dashes on both the insert and the chapter ring, because sometimes it's easier to line up these two lines here at 1 and here at 11 than it is to line up the 12 o'clock dash on a chapter ring with the big triangle. So between the three you should get a nice straight alignment. Just make sure, sometimes I like to look at it at a real oblique angle to make sure it looks lined up, and there's the finished product. So for this week's wrist check, what we got is the finished product. Here it is in all its glory. So let's take it off and have a closer look. So as you can see, yeah, that is the movement dial and handset from a Seiko Turtle SRP 775. I didn't remove the hands or anything, I just moved it wholesale, as it was previously in this case. Take a look at the case sides, very much SKX, but with drilled lugs. You can see that Marine Master bezel. Excellent grip on that. You can see from this side. There's the crown. It's a signed crown, just a black snake S in it. Here's that bead blasted case back. It's just very smooth. But they, like I said, they make a smaller profile crown. But I love how big this is. It's just very easy to operate. The chapter ring is actually one I made myself. I took a standard SKX chapter ring and I dyed it with like this gold stain to get the hash marks to match. As you can see, it's like a 60 click bezel, right? Weird, but it lines up great. The action's fantastic. Very little back play. So yeah, came out really good. This is on an Uncle Seiko fitted waffle. I'm very pleased with this. You can see the DL watches, crystal and insert line up perfectly flush with one another. Really fantastic. I still have the tool edge on this. Just like the way that looks when it doubles those markers. Alright, that's it. Let's flip the camera back around. Alright guys, that's it for this episode. Hopefully that video came together smoothly, not too disjointed with the voiceover. I love the watch. I'm really happy with how it came out. It's not going anywhere. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And before this video runs any longer, I'm going to let you guys go with a sneaker check. These are blacked out Air Jordan 1 lows, aka my dress shoes. Yeah, I'm that fancy. As always, if it's not too much trouble, like, subscribe, and come back next time. Peace!